to them. What do they say? What are they telling you and Stoney on the radio? What are people saying? And back in the day, it was Stoney and Wojo, and he was very and to the point. I mean, you could see it. Like, he knew fans loved big names and superstars and stars, so that was his business model for sports, was to give the fans what they want and give them stars. I'll keep spending, because he knows the worst thing you could accuse him of was not being willing to spend and not being wanting to be competitive. I think that's partly why the Tigers went from, okay, we're willing to scale back and people are on the market, to, all right, everybody's staying, at least for now, including, Cabrera and Verlander, who were two of Mike Ilitch's cherished prizes that he had acquired and nurtured and fans had loved for years. So your thoughts on Mike Ilitch, 248-539-9797. The ticket text is 97136, and the ticket text are indeed flooding in. I'll read them. Great guy, great owner. That's from Larry G. and Warren. R.I.P. to the greatest Detroiter to ever live, Mr. I. You could certainly make that argument. One of the great icons, and not even like many businessmen, he had his combatants as well. But you cannot deny the impact. From John in Canton, thank you, Mr. Ilitch, for everything you did. You're a great man. You will be sadly missed. Thank you for the championships. R.I.P. Mike Ilitch. Such a sad day. Let's rename the Little Caesars Arena Ilitch Arena. I think, they would have done that if they felt it was appropriate. I don't think that would change. I think it's going to be Little Caesars Arena. And I don't think that's going to change. All right, 248-539-9797. Ticket text 97136. Either your thoughts or your remembrances or what now for the local teams, now that Mike Ilitch has indeed passed away. Would the Tigers go up for sale at some point? That's certainly long been the rumor or the suggestion. I think Christopher Ilitch, now with obviously in charge of Olympia Entertainment and the new arena, I think the Red Wings are going to stay with the family. But the Tigers are a much bigger, more expensive operation, and you do wonder what will become of the Tigers. I mean, not recklessly speculating right out of the box, but somebody like Dan Gilbert or Tom Gores or whatever, who knows? Or maybe the Ilitches will keep the Tigers. And maybe I probably shouldn't even be delving into it right within an hour after Mike Ilitch has passed away, but just throwing it out there. Ticket text 97136. I am terribly saddened by the passing of Mr. I. This now means that his son Chris is going to be in charge of the Tigers. We wonder what that means. People wondering would Christopher Ilitch not spend as much money? All those things can be figured out going forward. As far as the future of the Tigers, the future of the payroll, and everything else. Right now, in the immediate aftermath, I'll tell you a few Mike Ilitch stories when I return of his competitiveness, his combativeness at times, very entertaining, but he really was single-minded as far as what he wanted. He wanted to win at everything, in the pizza business, in the building and restoring downtown business. Ilitch is a very private company, private people too, and it took a while for other businessmen to break into that, because they were a private family and were very proud of the things that they had built and wanted to continue to build, and I think they will continue to build. All right, 248-539-9797. Ticket text 97136. We'll take your calls. And ticket text next, talking about the passing of Mike Ilitch on 97.1 The Ticket.
The World Series, 3 times? And, that gets old. You want to win, so that's all I think about, My wife's got to put me in bed and pet me around or something. It'll be okay, Mike. It'll be okay.
Oh, that was classic Mike Ilitch right there. I forget which big signing that was. That might have been, I don't know, Torrey Hunt or whatever, but he loved the big signings, loved the big moments, loved the big competition. And Mike Ilitch passed away just earlier today, a short while ago. We've confirmed it. The phone number is 248-539-9797. The ticket text 97136. What I want to do here is just let people say whatever they want about Mike Ilitch. If you have thoughts about him or what he meant or what it is, where he stands amongst Detroit icons. And also this, if you had to break it down, what will end up being his biggest impact or his biggest legacy? Will it be reviving the Red Wings and creating Hockey Town with the 4 Stanley Cup championships, which then leads to Little Caesars Arena? Will it be the Tigers' revitalization, getting Comerica Park built, and after they lost 119 games the one season in the World Series shortly thereafter, 2 World Series appearances, but no championship? Will it be simply the Little Caesars, the company, the brand, the corporation that became one of the great pizza companies in the country as far as the amount of stores, the amount of people employed, the amount of money it has made? Will it be just in general the revitalization of Detroit? Because understand this, before it was sort of cool to be part of a Detroit revitalization, Mike Ilitch and his family and Marion Ilitch were part of it. And I remember when Comerica Park was being built and the cost overruns were getting higher because he wanted to upgrade and put more brick on Comerica Park because he didn't like how it was looking at first, and he had to get loans from that Japanese bank that really, put up his fortune on as collateral, that really put him under duress and did make it very difficult for him to spend money on the Tigers initially. He put that all out there. He put that all on the line. So out of all those things, and maybe there's something else I'm missing, the Fox Theater and the general revitalization of Detroit, the buying of the Tigers, getting Comerica Park built, and spending $200 million in payroll every year lately, the Red Wings revitalization and Hockey Town. What do you think of all of those? Will go down as Mike Ilitch's biggest impact or biggest legacy here in Detroit. And I know you really can't extricate one from the other. They're all kind of tied in. They're all kind of who he is and who he was, what he was about, competing and winning and trying to win. So I know they're tied together, but which one jumps out at you more than any other? And, later in the later years, he would pretty much say whatever he wanted to at press conferences. And was it at the parade where he did the growl and not the parade, but I think it was after they won the AL division championship series, ALCS. Was very animated at times, very engaging, very entertaining, and sometimes very raw too. Was kind of unfiltered at times, which again I appreciated. I'm not sure how many people had personal contact with Mike Ilitch. As someone who was lucky enough to have did several one-on-one sit-down interviews in his Comerica Park office, was very proud of things he had done. I remember asking him, this was one, it was probably 3 years ago with the Tigers. I think it was as they were going into the playoffs that year, his biggest or his favorite, biggest thing he had done with the Tigers, the one move that he was most proud of. And he said, trading for Miguel Cabrera. He had sort of identified the young guy down there with the Miami Marlins and anteed up, and that trade turned out to be one of the great steals in the history of baseball, as Miguel Cabrera is one of the great hitters in the history of baseball. 248-539-9797, ticket text 97136. Here come the ticket texts, and people being very emotional. Bob, I hope you read this. My dad was a freelance portrait artist back in the 70s. He worked a couple nights a week delivering pizzas for Little Caesars. Mr. I asked my dad to paint a portrait from a photo of Mrs. I. He was so happy with it, he gave my dad $500 over the normal price of $150. Great man. That's a cute story. Joe in Waterford, I can't think of any person who has done more for Detroit than Mr. Ilitch. I'm 66 years old, and I can't think of anyone. R.I.P. I worked for Mr. I years ago running Little Caesars hockey. He was always involved. He loved the kids. That's Larry G. in Warren. From Todd in Warren, he was great for our area sports. Many memories with my dad watching the Little Caesars pro softball team in East Detroit and met Norm Cash and Jim Northrup. I remember that, the Little Caesars pro softball team. And he was a competitive SOB in the professional softball. And I spoke to somebody down at Joe Louis Arena actually just last week. Just somebody at the arena that's always there. And I said, hey, did you hear anything? How's Mr. I doing? I said, not good. And I said, I sort of had suspected that because he hadn't been in public. And he said, yeah, everybody here our only hope is that he makes it to see the new arena, Little Caesars Arena. And he certainly saw it going up, but didn't see it finished, which is indeed sad. 248-539-9797. I'll go to the phones in a moment here. A release from Christopher Ilitch, a statement he has released. I'll read it here for you. He writes, my father was a once-in-a-generation entrepreneur, visionary, and leader, setting the tone for our organization and our family. He made such a positive impact in the world of sports and business and in the community, and we will remember him for his unwavering commitment to his employees, his passion for Detroit, his generosity to others, and his devotion to his family and friends. Together, my family and the company celebrate the tremendous man he was, and will continue to work hard to uphold his remarkable legacy. I'm honored to have had the opportunity to work with him to nurture and grow our businesses, but mostly I'm grateful to have called him my dad, and I know my siblings feel the same. That's from Christopher Ilitch. And just getting reports that there will be, I believe, a private service, but a public celebration or public commemoration, whatever you want to say, at some point. We'll get details and pass that along. All right, looking at the ticket text here, and very thankful for Mr. Ilitch, especially for his generous donation to Wayne State for a new business school. I'll get to enjoy the glamorous new building next to Little Caesars Arena starting my senior year of college. Very blessed. That's from David. In honor of Mike Ilitch, we should play the growl all next week. We'll dig up the growl. The growl was tremendous. Another one. As soon as I heard, I jumped into my car to buy a Little Caesars pizza. R.I.P. Mr. I. That's one way, certainly, to commemorate the guy. There it is. There's the growl. I believe that was after they beat Oakland to advance to the World Series. I'm not positive, though. We'll look that up. Let's go to Tecumseh and see what's going on with James.
That was from the Stanley Cup.
Oh, the Stanley Cup. That was a Stanley Cup celebration. Gotcha. Right. For the parade. To James, you're on 97.1 The Ticket. What's going on there, James?
Not much. How you doing, Mr. Wojo?
Good, thank you.
I was fortunate enough to work down at Joe Louis, so I got to meet him a couple of times. But the great story that I have about Mr. I is actually about my son. My son is in the U.S. Marines. And over at Comerica Park, you know how they would have the military bring the ball out?
Yep.
Well, my son got to do that against Pittsburgh, where the Verlander almost pitched the no-hitter. And before the game and everything started, we're, behind the scene and everything. And Mr. Ilitch actually came by. He didn't say hi to anybody, but went straight to my son because Mr. Ilitch was in the Marines. And he spent a good 2 to 3 minutes just talking to my son, getting to know him a little bit, asked him where he was stationed at, asked him, this and that. And I just thought, here, look at this, two Marines just talking like Marines and everything. And I'll never forget that about Mr. Ilitch. So I think his legacy is the great things he did for Detroit, but the way he dealt with people too.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a very nice story. Thank you, James. And I remember him alongside his wife, Marion Ilitch, standing there outside Comerica Park when Ernie Harwell passed away, and Ernie laid in state, and fans came by, and they stood there at the end of that receiving line. I remember I went by a couple of times. They must have stood there for eight hours at different times. Maybe Mike Ilitch would go away for a bit and then come back, and Marion Ilitch and stood there greeting fans as they came by, every single fan shaking their hands. We'll take more remembrances and the like, as I see on Ticket Text and the caller, people obviously very emotional about a man who, unfortunately, we knew this day was coming at some point, and there were signs that he wasn't going to make it to the new arena. And we'll see what happens now with the Detroit Tigers and everything else going forward. We'll take your calls at 248-539-9797. Ticket text 97136 on the Wojo Show on 97.1 The Ticket. sobbing, when you talk to them, and it's the icons are slipping away. Bill Davidson passed away a few years ago. William Clay Ford Sr. a couple years ago, and now Mike Ilitch. And, you really have been, when you think about it, you really have been lucky in the city of Detroit to have whatever you think of the accomplishments. And I know you can go, the Lions haven't won anything, and the Tigers didn't win a World Series under Mike Ilitch, but made it to 2 of them. Whatever you think of the accomplishments, you do have to appreciate the dedication and the stability. I mean, they were never packing the team up and taking it anywhere else. They were never, they didn't really publicly embarrass your city or your franchise in any way. They don't pull crap like the James Dolan, the New York Knicks owner, has done the last couple of days, getting Charles Oakley arrested and dragged out of the arena. None of that happened with these guys. And speaking specifically of Mike Ilitch, very private guy. I think the last time he really spoke in public to the media and the fans was, I believe, when they signed Justin Upton 2 years ago. I believe, or a year ago, whatever it was. When I think there was a time he joked about, I think I still have some money left here in my pocket, and was very fun, enjoying, entertaining, appreciating, and going for it one more time. And maybe that's the unspoken hidden reason why the Tigers have indeed kept the band back together and appear to be going for it one more time. The ticket text is 97136. Let me sift through these and find the ones to read. The phone number is 248-539-9797, and asking for your remembrances. And what do you think the biggest impact will end up being from Mike Ilitch? I mean, there's a million of them, obviously, but is it simply the love of Detroit and the revitalization, starting with the Fox Theater? Is it creating basically Hockeytown and winning 4 cups? Is it reviving the Tigers? Is it getting Little Caesars Arena built in with District Detroit around that? If you had to pick one, what is it? And if you have a personal remembrance of Mike Ilitch that you want to pass along, we've had some people call in about being a Marine, and he met the gentleman's son, and I'll pass along some of mine because I've had many instances to chat with the man. Always found him fascinating. Not from the standpoint of like he was very, very much of a common man. He didn't talk over people, and I think he talked bluntly sometimes, and I think he acted bluntly sometimes. And that was, I think, the best part about him. Ticket text 97136. Heaven just became Hockeytown. R.I.P. Mr. Ilitch, Terry in Brownstown. Every flag in Michigan should be at half mast when the sun rises tomorrow. We have lost a favorite son who gave us in so many ways. East Side Paul. Wojo, you're right about how he listened to the fans. 13 years ago, Mr. I walked into a Subway I worked at, and as a big Tigers fan, we started talking, and he asked me, which guy should we go after in free agency? He goes, do you like Steve Finley? I said, no, he's too old, and I forgot who he liked, but it was a great conversation I'll never forget. When I taught, he would do that. What do you think of that? What do you think of that guy? What do you think of our manager? I won't say which manager. I remember asking him, well, I'll say this. I remember asking him once about Jim Leland. And he goes, he does some things and I want to pick up the phone, but I never do. I never pick up the phone and call. And it's true, Jim Leland, I would talk to him. It's like, I really haven't had many conversations with Mike Ilitch my whole life. He totally left me alone. And now, privately, Mike Ilitch, because he listens to the fans, probably had a lot of, why the hell did he do that? Why did he pull that picture? But he's hands off. And give the man credit. He would put people in position and then be hands off. When he was hands on, it was usually to spend more money. Like when Dave Dombrowski was, okay, he's going to go through a little bit of a rebuild. And then, no, go get me Prince Field or go get me that. His hands on, it was usually to spend more money. Let's go to the phones at 248-539-9797. Let's go to Royal Oak, see what's going on with Franklin. You're on 97.1 The Ticket. Hello there, Franklin.
Hey there, how are you?
What's happening?
Good. And that's a sad day. I just turned on the radio after dinner and I heard the news. Like, wow, man. I didn't think it was that imminent. So kind of a sad day. You mentioned that we've lost a lot of our icons and our idols. And same here. I'm 58 and do public relations here in town. And I had the joy of doing PR for the Red Wing alumni. Wow, you talk about a wily bunch of guys.
Oh, yes.
I mean, oh my gosh. I met all the heroes my dad talked about, and they verified all the stories he told when I was a kid. I'm going, wow, that's pretty cool. And the one that I have left, he's a good friend, is Ted Lindsay. He is a class act, and thank God we still have him. He's so busy in the community helping people. He's got his Autism Foundation. I mean, it's great. So it's a good thing we got Ted.
Yes, Ted is around. All those old, and that is the thing. You're right about that, Franklin. And I think people knew it, but I don't know if they totally knew it. He really cherished his players in his.
Oh yeah.
Even at the expense of his management teams, like he wanted stars and he cherished them, and he was the first with a private plane and all that stuff.
Yeah, that was a good thing. Yeah, I just. One of his best hires, I think, was Jim Devellano.
Yep, early on, absolutely.
Yeah. Devellano really built that team up. So,
yep.
Well, okay, thanks. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the call, Franklin.
We'll keep listening.
Thank you very much. Yeah, he really at the like I said, sometimes at the expense of if anything was a player's fault or like a manager's fault or a coach's fault. He leaned towards it being the manager's fault or the coach's fault. I mean, as you can see, he did fire Dave Dombrowski last year, and he I swear, there is a reason that Miguel Cabrera and Justin Verlander seemingly on the trade market and then not on the trade market at all. I think we know what that reason might be, Mr. Ilitch. Let's go back to the ticket text here. Simply put, a billionaire family man who never forgot his roots. Indeed, he reinvented his hometown. He certainly helped reinvent his hometown. No doubt about that. And again, it's not a pretty business at times, buying up properties and having a long-term plan and stuff. But it was a plan, and it has worked to this point. It has certainly worked. Now, I know, didn't get the World Series title, but beyond that, everything else, for the most part, has worked. All right, we'll go back to it. 248-539-9797. Ticket text 97136 on the Wojo Show. 197.1 The Ticket.
it's been close right along, and we've had good teams, you know. Last year was a goofy year. They come up with that garbage. But we've been close every year, you know. We went, how many years? About 4 or 5 years we, won the pennant.
Mike Ilitch, who passed away today at the age of 87, and we'll in the coming days and weeks we'll dig through the next step for the Tigers and Red Wings and various organizations. But right now, just in a certain way, talking about the man, celebrating the man, your personal experiences with Mike Ilitch. I've had many, and I'm trying to give you little tidbits of when I've chatted with him and how I found many people, billionaire people. I know so many billionaires, you know me, but many of them, when you talk to them, they don't really care what you're saying. They just want to go ahead and present what they want to say and be done with it, and which is fine. But Mike Ilitch really was, and almost to a fault, was very cognizant of how he was viewed by the public. Very cognizant. Like, the worst thing you could say is call him a cheapskate. You know, if the public thought, wait, why isn't he spending more? Why is he dialing back the payroll? Would drive him crazy. I remember back when the Red Wings, when before they'd won a cup, and Brendan Shanahan, the trade may be happening or not be happening, and then it was dead, and the perception was there's no way Mike Ilitch and Peter Karmanos, who owned the Whalers, were going to get together, and Karmanos isn't going to work with Ilitch and let him trade for Brendan Shanahan, the final piece for the Stanley Cup. And I remember I wrote a column saying, do not underestimate Mike Ilitch's desire and ability to get this deal done. I don't care that, two hockey owners in the city of Detroit butting heads. He'll get it done. 2 days later, he got it done. And I'm not touting me at all. I believe me, that I'd seen enough of him to know that he responded to what was not only perhaps the thing that would lead to winning, but the thing that would be most impactful or would stir up the most passion in fans. I mean, there's a reason he said, I love superstars. I love superstars. Because he loved to see fans get excited. And absolutely, that was a big part of it. 248-539-9797. Ticket text 97136. Back to the phones. Let's go to Southfield and talk to Daryl. You're on 97.1 The Ticket. Hello there, Daryl.
Hey, Wojo. Hey. It's a sad day for the whole state of Michigan.
Yep.
We just lost a great, great gentleman. My father, of course, he played with the Tigers, but he was living in Seattle. And Mr. Ilitch called him and said, hey, what are you doing out there? You need to get back here. You belong in Detroit. You're Detroit. Get back here. It was Mr. Ilitch that made my father actually make that move back to Detroit.
Okay, for those who, Daryl, you are Willie Horton's son, correct?
Correct.
And
correct.
so Mr. Because Willie finished out his career with the Mariners, if I recalled, right?
That is correct.
And then Mr. Ilitch made the call and said you need to be part of it, and he put up the statue in Comerica Park and everything else.
That's right, and we owe that all to Mr. Ilitch. But what a great man. His entire family, I mean, they're just great people. They love ordinary people. I guess that's why he sticks out amongst other owners. He takes his time, as I heard from so many other callers. He takes his time with individuals. You've never heard of him shunning somebody off or anything like that. He loves this city. It's a great loss.
Yep, it is a great loss. And he really did, when you say taking time with people, he really did. He was very aware of how people perceived him. And he was the common man who had built big things, but still wanted to be, if he could, still be the common man.
Right. Yeah, my dad would tell me, he said, I sit up there in the suite all the time because I asked him, why are you up there all the time? He said, son, I played 14 years in the big leagues, but I learned much more sitting there talking to Mr. I, not just about the game, but about life.
Yes. Very. Yeah. I assume how's your dad, Willie Horton, dealing with the news? Is he?
I haven't spoken with him. I'm trying to reach him. He's been in Florida now for about 3 weeks.
Okay.
But I'm sure he did it pretty hard. Yes.
Right. Gotcha. I appreciate it, Daryl, very much.
Okay. Thanks, Wojo.
Thank you for the words. Daryl Horton, Willie Horton's son. Willie Horton, another great a city of Detroit icon, no doubt. And down probably in Florida getting ready for spring training. He's always there in Lakeland. Let's go back to the phones. Heard from all sorts of people. That was Willie Horton's son. Let's talk to Dennis. You're on 97.1 The Ticket. Hello there, Dennis.
Hi there, Wojo. Thanks for taking the call.
Sure.
When I was 16 years old, my first job was working at Little Caesars. And one afternoon, in walks Mike Ilitch into our store, dressed to the nines, silk suit, the whole 9 yards, put on an apron, stood next to us, and started making pizzas with us. I mean, he treated us just like regular people, talked to us. I mean, you would have never known, other than the way he was dressed, that he was a millionaire. He was the nicest guy to all of us.
Now, Dennis, I heard that he would just pop into all sorts of Little Caesars all over the city and just pop in, sometimes wait in line to see how people were being treated and get a pizza, or, like you said, go behind the counter and, put on the apron. Oh, your phone blew up there at the end. Let's look at these ticket texts, but these stories don't surprise me, and I know, and it's unfortunate that when someone passes, you hear about all the nice. But we've heard about nice things before. But later in life, he had become more reclusive and was more difficult to get great stories out of him. But reading these ticket texts, 97136. This is an interesting one, and I'll try to follow it here. A long one, but it's very interesting. My family lived across the street from the Ilitch family in the 50s when Mike and Marion opened their first Little Caesars in Garden City. We had 4 kids in our family between the ages of 1 and 5. My father became very ill and was hospitalized for several months, and my mother had no income to feed our family. Mr. and Mrs. I, the kind and generous people they've always been, came to our house and insisted my mom call the store anytime she needed a meal for the family at no charge. My parents loved Mr. and Mrs. Ilitch for lending us a helping hand and said they would never forget their generosity. He will be sadly missed. That's from the Santori family. That's very nice. That's incredibly nice. Another ticket text, 97136. A true class act that will be terribly missed. Just curious, had he been sick recently or was this sudden? Everyone's talking about that right now. Seems kind of surprising to some of us. No, he had, I remember like a year ago, the Ilitch family put out a release saying we have a line, our affairs in order and a line of secession if either Mike or Marion Ilitch were to pass away. And that was the first clue that they were obviously dealing with their mortality. And he had become, at least physically a little bit weaker when you would see him in public. And last couple of times I saw him, he was in a wheelchair, which I don't think there was necessarily one thing. He was 87 years old. So I don't think it came as a shock to a lot of people. Let me just put it that way. Ticket text 97136. In a world where cities are carved up and sold for pennies on the dollar, Mike Ilitch had a vision. Remember the dilapidated Fox Theater? Remember the nothingness that was Midtown? And now we have a viable district growing, all because of one man's vision. God has called home a saint. He did have a vision, no doubt about it. And another ticket text here, because Willie Horton's son, Daryl, has just called him moments ago. Very nice man. This ticket texter writes, Daryl Horton is a great man. Also, he mentored me at Sears and Kmart as he works for corporate. Very nice. More ticket texts. And there'll be more reaction coming from Tigers players, Jim Leland, and all sorts of people, obviously. And I think you'll hear very positive things, but I think you'll also hear, especially people in management, they did not sit around every night, swilling beers, and he left his management people alone. Like I told you, I remember talking to Jim Leland, and it was the year that they lost to Boston in the ALCS or whatever it was. And I remember him saying, everybody wants to win it so badly for Mr. I. He said, he doesn't come around that often, but when he does, you feel his presence. And I remember Mr. Ilitch was there in the clubhouse in Kansas City. I was there when Miguel Cabrera wrapped up the Triple Crown. And it was very emotional. And the team hadn't seen him around before, and they were very appreciative. And he, he left his management people for the most part alone, and I thought that was a good business model. All right, 248-539-9797, ticket text 97136. We'll talk more about the passing of Mike Ilitch on the Wojo Show on 97.1 The Ticket.
baseball team that Detroiters love most. The Detroit Tigers live here.
97.1 The Ticket. Yeah, I mean, that's something that I really want, and I want it bad. So doing everything we can to make sure we get as many good ball players that's out there.
That is Mike Ilitch, who was always looking for great ball players and always looking for the Holy Grail, the World Series championship. He didn't get it. He did get 4 Stanley Cup rings. And he did get to see his city revitalized thanks to much pushing and dedication, and from him and his family, and others have joined in. And I do think before there was Dan Gilbert and Tom Gores and others building down, there was Mike Ilitch. And there weren't many when he was willing to do it and invest. And I understand there were great investments to be made because Detroit was in such dire straits, but somebody still had to make those investments and stick with them and have some sort of vision. And I do believe history will show that Mike Ilitch was that man. The phone number is 248-539-9797. The ticket text 97136. I'm also asking from... Was it more of the sports impact, the hockey town, revitalizing the Tigers, or the business side of it, Little Caesars Pizza? And it is interesting what people say. For instance, this ticket texter, the $5 pizza changed the lives of millions of financially challenged families by making it affordable to feed the kids. R.I.P. I hadn't really thought, but that was the original pizza, and then the hot and ready, and no doubt. Ticket text 97136. Trying to sift through these. They're coming in, and a lot of them are longer. Detroit lost a true hero and visionary in Mr. Ilitch. He started all the big developments moving downtown. First, good man. One thing stuck with me. His one thing stuck with me. Lost track of it there. Here's another one. In the late 90s, I was downtown for business and decided to stop into American Coney for a late lunch. It was probably 1:30 or 2 p.m. I'm sitting there eating, and I look up and see a large Mercedes pull up next to the Coney. Mike and Marion got out of the car, walked into the Coney, and chowed down on some Coney dogs. It was awesome. I didn't bother them, and no one else did either. Mark in Grosse Pointe. From Kay in Farmington. So sad, Mr. I will be a legend of Detroit and on my Mount Rushmore of Detroit icons who shaped the city. Well, but when you think about it, I'm not going to sit here and go through and because Dennis Fithian and Dan Leach coming in momentarily, but when you look at the Mount Rushmore, as we often do, of Detroit icons, sports and just sports business, whatever, city icons, absolutely he's on there. I don't even know who else, when you think about it, who else would be on there. Certainly Dan Gilbert is well on his way to that, and others, but for sure, that goes without saying. And there's other people in the entertainment world that would be on there. Ticket text 97136, 248-539-9797. And I've been giving little instances or my remembrances, or, certainly being in the sports media business for a few years. Had many occasions to chat with Mr. I or interview him one-on-one. And like I said before, I was always surprised how interested he was in hearing what other people had to. I remember when the debate was still hot and heavy about Joe Louis Arena and should they build another arena and how can they build another arena when times are tough and how can they afford it. And I remember asking him about that when I had a one-on-one conversation. He said, let me ask you, do you think we need a new arena? And I said, well, the Joe has its charms, but it's not nearly as user-friendly. He said, well then, exactly. And he he didn't want to just be like, oh, I'm building it. He wanted people to at least acknowledge that, yes, it was difficult to keep the Joe up any longer, and it had become outdated. And even though people loved the sight lines and everything else, the amenities, the bathroom lines, like everything, he knew that. He heard from fans who knew that, and that's what he wanted to engage. That's what he wanted. He didn't want to be. He was in some ways, not a dictator, but obviously the man in charge. But he was very aware, like I said, of what people underneath him or the fans or the media had to say about him. And he wanted their impact on things, certainly. Ticket text 97136. Ilitch invested big money in Detroit at a time when every other investor thought it was crazy. If it wasn't for Ilitch, it's very possible that Detroit would not have seen the renaissance that it is experiencing now. R.I.P. That comes from Irish. Yes, somebody else probably would have stepped into the void, but it would have been different. It might have been somebody who wasn't as sports crazy as Mike Ilitch. It might have been somebody who had a different vision for Detroit or a worse vision. Or, and again, that's not normally the path that cities that are recovering take. They normally aren't just built around their sports palaces and their teams. There are usually there's industry or neighborhoods or other things, but Detroit really wasn't in position to pick and choose how it was going to recover. And Mike and Marian Ilitch and the family, they had their vision and they were going to do it, and it was going to be built around sports. And sports goes to the common man, just like Little Caesars Pizza, $5 pizzas go to the common man, and that's how it was going to be, and that's how they did it. 248-539-9797, ticket text 97136. We'll bring in a moment here Dan Leach and Dennis Fithian, also longtime Detroiters who know the impact and certainly have their own stories to tell about Mike Ilitch and what he has done for the city. We'll do that next on the Wojo Show on 97.1 The Ticket.
97.1 The Ticket.
Springtime in Myrtle Beach brings out the best in your game. With pristine courses and lavish amenities, Myrtle Beach can't be beat as the golf capital of the world. Start planning your spring golf
Oh, yeah, you got the Wojo show here on 97.1 The Ticket on a somber Friday night, actually, in the Motor D, the passing of Mike Ilitch just a few hours ago. And Dennis Fithian and Dan Leach will be taking over the airwaves at 8 o'clock. A couple of also Michiganders/Detroiters. You guys, like me, you know the impact. And it's interesting, the impact by Mike Ilitch felt by, like, I've had people ticket text saying, like, growing, like, get the $5 pizza for Little Caesars. Yeah. You could feed a family. Like, there really was a common touch to everything that he did.
And I think you look at this, Wojo, this city and the people that live in this city and the hardworking people that respect a guy like Ilitch, the self-made guy that made a lot of money, but also put a lot of it back. Created a ton of jobs, bought the Wings in 82 and made them a contender, bought the Tigers later on and made them a contender. And, this was a guy who, till the day he died, which sadly was today, was doing everything he could to bring a title to a town that was starving for one, as far as the Tigers go, helped bring 4 championships for the Wings and end that decade-old drought. And I just look at it in the pillars of the history of this great city. You've probably got, a handful of people, 5 fingers of people that you could compare to. Mike Ilitch, he's one of them.
Yeah, there's, you go back to the auto barons and everything else, but for somebody who touched so many different, the arts with the Fox Theater and sports and business and one of the ginormous pizza companies in the world, there are very few that have that.
Well, a self-made billionaire, it's like a guy writing from Garden City, going all the way up in owning the teams and the casinos and all that. But you felt like, even as just a common person, you kind of felt like Mike Ilitch as an owner, he seemed like he was a fan, the way that he went after the free agents. Yep. And that he was there to make money, but look at the Tigers for the last couple of years. There's been a lot of people say, this team's got to slash payroll. They just can't keep throwing the money out there. And Mike Ilitch, you could tell that he was chasing the World Series. The number one thing that people would call in and say about Mike Ilitch over the years, they wanted to see the Tigers to win a World Series with Mike Ilitch.
Almost like more for him than they wanted it themselves, but it was for this guy. And you brought up a great point about that $5 pizza. I think that describes Mike Ilitch. Yes, it's, he's a businessman. It's not like he's doing this for fun.
Right.
But, of course, donated millions to charity and did so many different foundations and all that stuff. But the $5 pizza did feed a family. And, whether it was a Tigers ticket or a Wings ticket, they never spiraled out of control, even with the payrolls going up. He cared about the city. He cared about its people, and he wanted more than anything to get that Tigers championship that it's been now, almost 33 years since they had one?
And he was the tributes coming in, from players, and, I've seen quotes from Dave Dombrowski and Justin Verlander and people that, and a moment of silence at the Joe tonight as Michigan State get ready, a moment of silence at the Palace. And the word that people keep using, and it's so true, is passion. And it was fan passion, and sometimes it was great. Yes, bring me Prince Field or whatever. And sometimes it was to the detriment. All of a sudden, they've got their hamstrung by some of these contracts. But it
loyalty,
impetuous at times. But especially as he got along in years later, it was like full bore ahead. Never didn't waste away his final years. Just I've accomplished all I can do. I'm going to say no. He wanted it to the very, very end.
And I'll never forget, Dennis and Wojo, I know you guys will remember that moment on the stage when the Tigers had won the ALCS, and Ilitch is up there, and you can just see how much it meant to him. Later in life, he was in and out of all these health issues. To have a chance to win that World Series, they didn't get it done, but it's not like he didn't put this team, this franchise, this city in position to have a chance to get a championship, which, as Dennis, you said, you look at some of these other owners, guys like Jerry Jones and even a Mark Cuban, not to say they don't, care about the fans, but, they're celebrities. They're going out there. They're doing reality shows. They have their own weekly radio show. Mike Ilitch was a guy that cared about Detroiters and cared about the average fan. And I think that's a special thing that you don't see as much anymore in sports. And Wojo, you've covered a lot of them. I don't think you really see that these days anymore.
No. Everything has become more corporate, less. People don't make reactionary, impetuous decisions like Mike Ilitch would make. Like, in most organizations, how it would have to be vetted to go get Prince Field. Okay, this contract would be this much. It would never get done. And he would rash passion, he would get it done.
When you were going in, there were a few times I can remember just over the last couple of years that you had huge stories with him, one-on-one stories with him. So when you went in to talk with him, was he like, they have this gigantic office, and you guys are sitting off, and it was kind of like the Godfather situation, or what?
It wasn't as gigantic as you'd think, his office in Comerica Park, but it had, great pictures on the wall. It was just the two of us, and then one of his PR people sort of sat in the back. And I'll repeat what I said earlier. It would usually begin with him asking me about, so what are they saying? Even back when I was on the radio, so what are the Stody and Wojo saying on the radio?
What are those guys saying?
Yeah, he would always want to know, were people getting on his case for, and he really took when the Tigers lost those 119 games. I remember talking and writing a column saying that will end up being the best thing that happened to the Tigers because Mike Ilitch will be so embarrassed by the 119 losses. You watch how he responds and reacts. It was 2 years later they were in the World Series.
It was 3 years later.
Whatever it was.
To the World Series. What did you say? Did you say that's
no, he said they were in it. We're in it.
Yeah, no, win it.
I thought it sounded like you said win it.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we can kind of pretend they did because for Mr. Ilitch today, Wojo, going back with your great history, and Dennis kind of alluded to this, when you think of all the, different things that have happened with the Wings and the Tigers throughout this last, 82, 35 years ago since Ilitch took over, I wanted to ask you this, but I mean, just my personal feeling, and I'm a little younger than you, like 3 years younger.
A little bit, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're about, 38 these days?
Mm-hmm.
I think the legacy he leaves here, not just the business side, but with the teams. And yes, I know the Wings are having a rough year, and yes, the Tigers have been close and haven't gotten over the hump. But I think that legacy he's left, the hands he put on these franchises, is going to last for a long, long time. And you've been able to see it from different eras. I think that what he was able to do is going to really show how lucky this city was to have him as an owner for two major sports franchises.
If I were to think of a phrase, if there's a phrase that would be the legacy of Mike Ilitch, and just off the top of my head, I just jotted it down, and maybe it's not the most eloquent one, but it would be, you can get it done. Like, who else would have thought, really, you're going to, the Fox Theater, it's falling apart. You're starting what, it's going to be a worldwide piece? Wait, you want to build where downtown? That would be the phrase that sticks with me. You can get it done.
Right. You're going to try to create this entertainment district in a city that was tearing itself apart and no one wanted to go downtown, and it worked.
Right. Now, listen to this ticket text. Some of these are very cool and emotional from BW in Brighton. Ilitch made possible some of the greatest moments and memories of my life. Without him, there is no Iserman, no Hockey Town, no Triple Crown, no Detroit concert or events, no deep dish combo mambo, etc., etc. Thank you, R.I.P., Mr. Ilitch.
See, that's what I mean about legacy. That just got me a little choked up because think about all the generations, the fathers that now have sons now, or the grandparents that were alive in the 80s and saw a Wings team that had been the Dead Wings, a Tigers team that had an AL record loss as far as losses go, and going to 2 World Series, winning 4 Stanley Cups, Wings 25 straight years in the playoffs. The ripples of that are going to last for generations because of Mike Ilitch.
Yeah, and he could be so. I remember he would get into press conferences with Joe Falls, the late great Joe Falls.
Yeah, Joe would get right off the bat. Are you signing him or not?
Yeah. Why did you do this? All right, Joe. And they would go at it, and it was great. It was the fan Mike Ilitch trying to explain what the businessman Mike Ilitch was doing it and why he was doing it. It was entertaining, it was real, and it was raw at times. And we'll probably never see it again from here to 4. And the elder statesmen are gone. Bill Davidson, William Clay Ford Sr., Mike Ilitch, and now you've got great minds and great, but Dan Gilbert and Tom Gores and Christopher Ilitch, but much more buttoned down, and you're not going to see them necessarily making impetuous, quick, passionate, rash moves. Everything's going to be thought out.
It's scary to think about
different era
where the Wings and Tigers are going without Mike Ilitch.
You know what? Absolutely.
We've reached out, Dennis and I, to, some people that obviously were very close to Mike Ilitch. We're hoping to hear from some of them, guys that obviously played for the Tigers and Wings and some of the broadcasters in this town that have worked with them. So hopefully we'll hear from some of them. But, of course, we want to hear from the people out there that I know are very affected by the passing. I mean, listen, it wasn't like he was young. But anytime you lose a titan of business and sports and someone that meant so much to the city, like that texter talked about, it's very tough.
Yeah, it was shocking, but it wasn't really shocking, but it's still shocking when it happens. All right, here they come. It's Dennis Fithian and Dan Leash. They'll take your remembrances and give their thoughts on Mike Ilitch. The phone number is 248-539-9797. Ticket text 97136. Stay tuned here on 97.1 The Ticket.